Good afternoon, colleagues. Always a pleasure to see you all, and welcome to our witnesses, Mr. Hayes, Ms. Surprenant, and Mr. Stack. Thank you for being a witness for today's meeting. I'll start with you, Mr. Stack. Mr. Stack, was Gerald Butts hired in any capacity to make recommendations for McKinsey and Trans Mountain?
I thank the member for his question. No, Mr. Butts. There was no recommendation from Mr. Butts or any government in the hiring of McKinsey.
Est-ce que Madame Dawn Farrell,
Ms. Dawn Farrell, who was at the major projects for the federal government, was she involved in recommending hiring McKinsey for Trans Mountain?
Yeah, the decision to hire to hire McKinsey was approved by the executive level, and at the time, Dawn Farrell was the chief executive officer at Trans Mountain, and so she was part of that decision-making process.
Monsieur Stack, est-ce que vous acceptez?
Mr. Stack, would you accept to table with the...
Moi, ça m'arrive jamais de toute façon.
This never happens to me.
But there is some issue here to address, just technical issue. Monsieur Stack, je reviens à la question.
Mr. Stack, I'm going to come back to my question. Would you accept that your company share with us all documents relating to Ms. Farrell for discussions that occurred at the board of Trans Mountain when she was there regarding hiring McKinsey?
I'm not sure I'm able to make that commitment at this point in time, but I would commit to get back to the committee with a response and provide that to the committee clerk.
Okay. Je vous rappelle que
Trans Mountain is a company that was under the jurisdiction of the federal government, and Ms. Farrell plays a role that is under federal jurisdiction, and we want to know what happened, and Trans Mountain received a major contract for McKinsey that is under investigation. Mr. Stack, it's not normal that communications by Ms. Farrell on this issue, or rather we would like to receive them. We want to see what happened and the role that she could have played.
Yeah, I mean, our board and the discussions at our board are admitted, and there are members of the Department of Finance, as well as CDEV sitting on the board of directors, and so they would have that information as well.
On comprend que le projet de
The Trans Mountain project is a significant one. We also know that Trans Mountain received a significant budget without any control in the spending. In 2017, it was assessed at $7.4 billion, and in 2023, it was $34 billion. So that's almost 5 times higher than expected. That's not a slight increase. This is a significant increase, and it's taxpayers that had to pay the bills. Ms. Farrell was in her position before giving the $33 million contract to McKinsey. Why did you give a non-competitive contract even though the rules are very clear?
Sorry, Mr. Stack, you are on mute, actually. If you could take it from the top, please.
Apologies. Let me just touch on a couple of items there. So first of all, the overall cost of the projects are currently under review with the CER as part of our ongoing rate process, and they have access to all of the documentations associated with the costs and the cost increases over time in order to assess and make as part of our toll. With regards to the sole source direct assign of the contract to McKinsey, at the time, look, the company had a lot of cost and productivity initiatives underway right from the beginning of the project in order to manage schedule and costs. And when McKinsey was hired, it was mid-project. It was about halfway through, or even a little bit more than halfway through the project. And just in the ongoing desire to continue to look for ways to continually improve both schedule and costs, it was decided that we needed to bring in somebody who had very unique and specialized skill to help us look for opportunities that weren't already underway.
Mais ce qu'il faut comprendre, c'est que Madame.
But Ms. Farrell is at the Major Projects Office, where they will be receiving billions of dollars to invest. According to the report by the Auditor General that we are currently looking at, the Trans Mountain budget increased significantly, and contracts did not respect the rules about public and private companies. Ms. Farrell, what should Ms. Farrell do to improve what she's doing according to her experience with Trans Mountain?
Yeah, I think the Auditor's General report was actually very comprehensive in some of the key factors associated with good procurement practices, and we would endorse those as well. And I'm sure Ms. Farrell would also take those onto her new role in the Major Projects Office. First of all, having good policies in place, requesting competitive bids is definitely a preferred practice. In our particular case, as a standalone corporation, sole sourcing is an approved method of assigning work, but we do look to RFP as many projects as we can, or as many contracts as we can.
Encore une petite question, ça va pour le moment.
Do you have another question, or you? No? Thank you, Mr. Deltel.
Thank you. My question will be to, excuse me here, Mr. Stack. So I'll begin with you. Ms. Farrell assumed the role of President and CEO of Trans Mountain Corporation in August of 2022, just 2 months before the October 2022 awarded the $32.9 million non-competitive contract to McKinsey and Company for professional services. Was she involved in any way in recommending or facilitating the McKinsey engagement?
I do not know if she was the original originator of recommending McKinsey, but as I mentioned earlier, the approval of the sole source to McKinsey was approved by the senior leadership team, including the CEO, which was Don Farrell at the time, the CFO, the Chief Project Execution Officer, and the Chief Commercial Officer. So it was reviewed and approved by the senior levels at Trans Mountain.
Thank you. Under Ms. Farrell's tenure, the cost for the Trans Mountain project ballooned from an initial $7.4 billion to $30.9 billion, and by March 2023, over $34 billion. That's over 5 times the original estimate. Why?
Well, I think that is the case that's in front of the CER at this point in time. And I would say that there is in-depth evidence given into that process, and that's still an ongoing rate case hearing. There were a number of contributing factors, and I don't want to go into too much detail because that is really the purview of the CER to assess all of those reasons. But there was, sort of a very unique period of time in the regulatory development. There was a lot of natural events that occurred and force majeure events, and there's a lot of contributing factors overall. But I would say that we really need to defer the CER process on that.
So for me personally, the reason why I asked this, I find this very concerning, because she is the new the head of the new Major Projects Office, and with a track record of going 5 times over, I personally don't think that Canadians would be delighted to hear that she got $700,000, a brand new $700,000 a year job. That's why I'm asking these questions, but I'll move on to another question. The Auditor General highlighted that the Trans Mountain failed to properly follow procurement policy rules. In your view as the CFO, how did Ms. Farrell's leadership contribute to these failures? And has there been a review into the decisions made under her leadership to make sure that this kind of problem doesn't happen again?
Well, I would focus it in onto the procurement decisions of Dawn Farrell. She has been in business for an extended period of time. She is very familiar with the procurement policies. As you mentioned, she came into the company, well after construction had started and well after that $7.5 billion number was in place. As far as the procurement strategies go, the decisions to sole source are absolutely appropriate, or not appropriate, but acceptable, or they're an allowed practice within our company and within our policies. And at the time, we were spending significant amount of money, hundreds of millions of dollars per month on construction, and McKinsey brought very unique and specialized skills into the company. And I know that's what would have been discussed at the leadership level at that time.
I understand that. I understand that, but can you understand that when the Canadians look into this and we're 5 times over budget and a $32.9 million non-competitive contract was given out, it's a big concern. And now it's an even bigger concern that she heads the major projects office. What as the CFO, what oversight of financial approvals, what kind of guardrails and checks were in place in the contract to make sure that the value for money was achieved for this $32 million contract?
Yeah. Well, certainly for a contract of that magnitude, it would have to go right up to the executive level for decision-making approval. So, and then, as I mentioned, it was originally let as a 6-month contract under various terms of fixed price, cost recovery, as well as value for delivery. And so it was an ongoing measure that the contract extended only if value is being delivered.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Keurig.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go to Mr. Hayes just to mix it up a little bit. In light of yesterday's budget, where we've had some changing definitions of what is an operating expense versus capital expense, in your audit, did you notice then that there was some deviations or changes through how they were defining some of these rules that were in regards to the conflict of interests, or on that part?
Thank you very much. We didn't see that there was a change in interpretation or anything like that. Our findings were really focused on the importance of pursuing the conflict of interest declarations by everyone that's involved in the procurement processes early in the process, so that decisions could be made knowing full well that everybody is independent.
So with that, in your audit, the review of TMX, you've found that the conflict of interest rules were not any different than they were previously. It's just that some of the rules were not always followed up on in regards to, as we've talked in the past, that if you don't have and I don't know if it's just that if you don't have proof, then you can't say that you actually did it, or if it was proof that they just didn't do it.
So I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. The statements that we made about conflict of interest were general in nature on the basis of the sampling that we did across both departments and Crown corporations. It was a general finding. There was only a few organizations where we found strong practices all the way through the process, which is why we made the recommendation. I wouldn't want to make a comment about Trans Mountain Corporation's ethical practices specifically here, because I don't have that level of detail in the way that we did this audit.
Okay, thank you. So in this process, just kind of ignoring necessarily Trans Mountain, but the overall government process, have you noticed a change or just the lack in not following through? And is it just this department? Or because I seem to see a theme in some of your audits that a lot of the rules are not necessarily being followed. So I'm just wondering whether or not you can compare that to some of your other audits, whether this conflict of interest has been an issue in any other areas that haven't been proven or shown.
Thank you. Indeed, when we did, we've done now a series of audits on procurement practices over a number of years. Granted, they have been looking at the same period of time, so our findings are consistent across those audits. What we have been finding is that there's a frequent disregard for the rules, and that's important when you look at what these rules and policies are there to achieve: fairness, transparency, and best use of taxpayer dollars. So whether it's on procurement practices or on conflict of interest rules, basically what we have been saying to the government is, moving forward, make sure that everybody understands these rules and applies them. That's how you're going to get the best outcome for Canadians.
And just to follow that up one step further, could we say that this set of rules should be applied to every single government department on every single project that we go forward, to have the same rules, so there's not different interpretations when they go to different departments?
Well, herein lies the difference with Trans Mountain in particular. When we look at government rules, those would apply to government departments and agencies. The next level, of course, is Crown corporations, which are at an arm's length. And in the case of Trans Mountain Corporation, this is a wholly owned subsidiary of a parent Crown, CDEV. So as you get further and further from a government department, the latitude that these organizations have is a bit different. When it comes to conflict of interest and ethics, I think the fundamental principles should be the same. When it comes to procurement practices, we recognize that there will be variations. The government's procurement policies will not apply the same way.
So in just going one step further than that, would you suggest that perhaps we should have the same rules extended all the way through to the Crown corporations as the government departments?
That would be a question I don't think I am equipped to answer. That's a matter of policy. I think what's important is to recognize that as the government relies on Crown corporations or wholly owned subsidiaries to carry out some of these functions, it is aware of the operating environment for these organizations.
Okay. I just, I'll take one, how much time do I have left?
Brief
just
question.
One question for Mr. Stack, that perhaps we had the conversation, or you were mentioning about the information that was coming from McKinsey as reports from my colleagues as to suggestions and whether, I was just wondering if we could actually get some of those reports. You'd talked about them, but I don't think we necessarily saw some of those details yet. Now, I don't know if we could maybe get those submitted to the committee.
I'm just going to stop there. Is that clear, Mr. Stack, or is that?
No, I'm not clear on which reports the member is referring to.
Do you want to clarify that, or should I come back to you?
Just there was some written advice about including any memos and presentations from McKinsey to Trans Mountain on how to proceed on savings and that sort of thing, but. And I don't know if you have those that we could, if it would be appropriate to present.
Go ahead, Mr. Stack. Let's hear it. Mr. Stack, go ahead, please.
Well, I would say that the engagements with McKinsey were very extensive over that 12 or 13-month period, with regular meetings and long laundry lists of initiatives compiled, sent up to management through the committee. I believe those have all been filed again as part of the CER process, and is a matter of public record there.
Thank you. That we'll investigate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to come back to the heart of the report that we requested. So contracts given to McKinsey from 2011 to 2023. On page 9, there are 2 tables. And we can see that up until 2016, there wasn't a lot of variation, about $2 million in contracts for the federal government. I would like to remind you that in 2016 or 2015, that's when Mr. Trudeau's government came into power. From 2016 to 2023, it increases significantly. If we look at 2016 to 2022, the contracts awarded by the federal government to all companies go from $5 to $8.5 billion. So that's an increase of 70%, which is enormous. And they hired tens of thousands of public servants. often, if you need more public servants, you need fewer private contracts, but the increase was 70%. For those who are listening who think that's a lot, that's nothing. It's nothing compared to McKinsey. McKinsey in 2016 was receiving $2 million worth of contracts, and in 2022, $55 million. That it increased 27-fold. A company that had a value of about $2 million for contracts, and then the percentage went up by 27 times. Thank you for the question. I believe that I can say that it's important to optimize public resources. At every opportunity, we need to look at the contracts and the work that could be carried out by public servants before awarding a contract. That is important. With our audits and our report, we have flagged issues regarding resource optimization. There are a lot of public funds that are awarded for professional contracts, and it is up to the government to look at the reasons behind those contracts and what the results are. Your response is very cautious, Mr. Hayes, but for those listening, they must be shocked to hear that a business saw its contracts increase so significantly in such a short period of time from 2016 to 2022, whereas the government had given 70% more contracts, and it is unacceptable. Chair, in this report, we have understood that 97 contracts were given to 10 departments worth millions of dollars. But the issue there is with the quality of work. 70% of the contracts were not competitive for a value of $118 million. Contracts often did not respect procurement rules. The justifications were not there, and there was no confirmation of delivery. And so overall, everything was done incorrectly. How can you explain that to us? Thank you for the question. That was an example of another message shared by the Auditor General. It's a significant lack of respect for the processes. In this report, we found a few organizations that were doing good work for that. Mr. Hayes, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to end with a question. Your work shows that there are rules, but the rules were not applied when given contracts to McKinsey. You defined that if we were to respect the rules, there's no issue. So we don't need new rules. We don't need new steps. We just need to apply the rules correctly, and then there wouldn't be an issue. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to the Auditor General.